Vrintaya Tulsivaya Priyaya Krishnavasacha Krishna Bhakti Praidevi Satyavatya No Namaha. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balama Girivaradari Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Rajakacharya Asatara Sata Shri Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktarinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Pacharane. Nirvasesa Sanyavadi Paskatyade Satarane. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Panchakalpachubhischa Kripa Sindhuvyevata Patitanam Pavana Avyo Vaishnavebi Namo Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya March 22nd, 2026 in New Goloka, Hillsborough, North Carolina. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 72, Text 7. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Samyag Vyavasitam Rajam Bhavata Shatru Karshana Kalyani Yena Take Kirtir Lokan Anu Bhavishyati. Please chant. Samyag Vyavasitam Rajam Bhavata Shatru Karshana Kalyani Yena Te Kirtir Lokananu Bhavishyati. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Samyag Vyavasitam Rajan Bhavata Shatru Karshana Kalyani Yena Te Kirtir Lokananu Bhavishyati. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Samyag Vyavasitam Rajam Bhavata Shatru Karshana Kalyani Yena Te Kirtir Lokananu bhavishyati. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. The Supreme Lord said, Samyak, perfectly, Vyavasitam, determined, Rajan, O king, Bhavata, by you, Shatru, of enemies, Karshana, O tormentor, Kalyani, auspicious, Yena, by which, Te, your, Kirtihi, fame, Lokan, all the worlds, Anubhavishyati, it will see. BBT translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, your decision is perfect, O king, and thus your noble fame will spread to all the worlds, O tormentor of your enemies. BBT purport. Lord Krishna here concurs with King Yudhisthira's decision that the Rajasuya sacrifice should be performed. The Lord further agrees that there is nothing unfair in the fact that one result is achieved by those who worship him and another by those who do not. The great Bhagavatam commentators point out that by addressing King Yudhishthira as Shatru Karshana, quote, tormentor of enemies, unquote, Lord Krishna is imparting to him the potency to conquer all the enemy kings. Thus Krishna predicted that King Yudhisthira's noble fame would spread to all the worlds, and in fact it has. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Samyag Vyavasitam Rajam Bhavata Shatrukarshana Kalyani Yena Te Kirtir Lokan Anubhavishyati. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, your decision is perfect, O king, and thus your noble fame will spread to all the worlds, O tormentor of your enemies. The translation Prabhupada gives in Krishna book is, on hearing this statement by King Yudhisthira, Lord Krishna replied as follows. My dear King Yudhisthira, O killer of enemies, O ideal justice personified, I completely support your decision to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. After you perform this great sacrifice, your good name will remain well established forever in the history of human civilization. So it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada translates Shatru Karshana as O killer of enemies, O ideal justice personified. Srila Sanatana Goswami's commentary. The Lord announced that he is pleased with what Yudhisthira said and gives his consent. What you have decided to do or what you want to do is proper. It is suitable for you, O king. This should be done by a king, or because you are king upholding dharma, or because you shine with all good qualities. Your superior fame, or fame auspicious for the world, Kalyani, will spread to the people. Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary, the Lord's mercy, which is more profuse than that of the desire tree, is shown by his words. What you decided is very good. The reasons will be explained. O king, because this is the duty of the king, it is auspicious for the whole world, or will produce bhakti to me in all the people. It will spread to all the people, anulokan. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary. Shri Krishna said, O great cloud showering the nectar of my glories, O king, certainly you have my permission to perform the sacrifice. Krishna says this in the mood of being a normal human being. By addressing King Yudhishthira as Shatru Karshana, tormentor of enemies, Krishna is imparting to him the potency to conquer all the enemy kings and become world famous. So I want to just note a few things that we're not going to talk about in depth, but I just want to note them. So sometimes devotees think that being Krishna conscious means that you're just kind of a blob, you're just kind of a machine, and you just do whatever you're told by the Lord or by the Guru. You know, you're just like, okay, and Krishna says do this, or Guru says do this, and then you just do it. Certainly, it's true that if Krishna or Guru gives a direct order, like stand up on the chariot, pick up your bow, and fight, then you do that. But we also see that many times the desire originates with the devotee, not with the Lord. So here we have the desire originates with King Yudhisthira. I want to do this Rajasuya sacrifice. It will glorify you. It will show that those who have surrendered to you prosper. It will help in your mission. And Krishna says, yes, I agree. very good. And in fact, we know even among human beings that we appreciate people who take initiative, isn't it? One of the things I really like about this particular temple and this particular community is how much the leaders here appreciate those who take initiative. I once visited a temple where they had a big sign up that said, "We very much appreciate your voluntary service, but don't do anything until you've submitted a written request and had it approved by our temple board." And I thought, my God, you can't even pick up the dirty dishes from the prasadam room and wash them without a written letter from the temple board. So Krishna's not like that. He does give sometimes direct orders, but he also appreciates it when the devotees have their own inspiration. Again, if let's say you're running a business, so you want people to follow orders and rules, but you also would like that the employees would have their own inspiration. Oh, this is how we could become more profitable. This is how we could improve our product. And good businesses actually solicit input from the employees. What would you like to do? So it can be orders, but it can also be blessings and permission. And here we see that Krishna is not only giving blessings, he's also giving empowerment. That by saying you're going to torment your enemies, Krishna is empowering him to do that. So I thought that that was a very important point. All right. So we know that the main thing I want to talk about here, though, is this Shatru Karshana. It seems a little strange, perhaps. Right? Someone who's going to torture their enemies, and especially in regard to King Yudhisthira. Right? Because Krishna repeats many times in the Bhagavad Gita. What does he say about enemies? Anybody know? That Yudhisthira is a Ajatashatru, yeah? How can he torment enemies he doesn't have? Yes. And that's what we're going to look at in depth. What instructions does Krishna give in the Bhagavad Gita about enemies? That he kills the enemies, okay. What instruction does he give for the devotees in the Bhagavad Gita about enemies? Says you shouldn't see enemies. You should see friends, enemies, neutral, everybody equally, right? Am I right? Yes? And he says it more than once. He says, right, the yogi is elevated if he sees pebbles, stoned, and gold as the same, and even more elevated those who see friends, enemies, neutrals, well-wishers with an equal mind. And in the previous verse, King Yudhisthira praised Krishna for being what? Equal. You don't have any friends or enemies. And Krishna says that, although he says, Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya jaduskatam, he also says, I don't have any friends. I don't envy anybody. I don't really have any enemies. And yeah, this is the question. How can Maharaj Yudhisthira, who's called Ajatashatru, his enemy's never been born, what enemies is he going to torment? He doesn't have any. Yeah, well, so what does this mean? It's very interesting because this is a name for Yudhisthira. Your enemy's never been born. Ah, all right. They're not equal the way you are, so therefore you have to torment them. And then, why would Krishna praise Yudhisthira as a tormentor of enemies? So we're going to look at this Ajatashatru appellation. This is like a title that Maharaj Yudhisthira has. You know, our modern politicians also have titles, but not quite so complimentary, I think. Yes? And then, what do we do with friends and enemies in this world? And what does it mean to torment enemies? So there's a number of places where Yudhisthira is called Ajatashatru. One is in Bhagavatam 185, where Prabhupada translates it, one who has no enemy. And the verse talks about how Duryodhana usurped the kingdom of Yudhisthira, who had no enemy. Almost contradictory, right? Duryodhana usurps the kingdom of one who had no enemy. Okay, so that Yudhisthira wants to highlight those who are, I'm repeating for the internet people. Yes, that Yudhisthira is doing this Rajasuya Yajna to highlight that. Ah, very insightful. Those who are inimical to Krishna, it's a torment how wonderful Krishna is. Isn't it? Right? That if you're an emperor, you got to have enemies. But he didn't have any, but he had any. You don't have enemies, but the enemies have you. All right. So we see in 110.6, again, Yudhisthira is called Ajatashatru, one who has no enemy. And there it's explained, because the king has no enemy, the citizens were never disturbed by mental agonies or natural disturbances. In our modern society, practically everybody has mental agonies. Right? I get some free news headlines services delivered to my email, like just the headlines and stuff. And one of them that I really appreciate, it's a very nice service. They keep asking people to subscribe, because I just have the free service, and if you subscribe, then you get their in-depth analysis and this and that. And I wrote to them and I said, the reason I don't subscribe is I don't want to hear any more news than I already hear. I don't want to get more stuff, because just keeping up a little bit with what's going on is just mental agony most of the time. Oh no, now there's this thing, now there's this problem, now there's this problem. What crazy thing are our world leaders doing today? And natural disturbances. The amount of natural disturbances in society is increasing. And people say, well, it's increasing because of climate change, and climate change because we're driving too many gasoline cars. But it's also natural disturbances are increasing because the people, and especially the leaders, are so sinful. And this is in general all over the world. We're not pointing out like just one particular country, but it's a general problem. And because Maharaj Yudhisthira was a Ajatashatru, because he had no enemies, for that reason, people didn't have mental agonies, and for that reason, there weren't natural disturbances. Okay, in 110.32, there Prabhupada translates, Maharaj Yudhisthira, who was no one's enemy. But it notes that, although he had no one's enemy, he engaged military divisions to protect Krishna out of affection. In 3.1.11, Vidura uses this phrase, Ajatashatru, when telling Dhritarashtra to return the kingdom to Yudhisthira. He says, you should give the kingdom back to Yudhisthira because he doesn't see you as an enemy. Why are you seeing him as an enemy? Again, in 7.1.13, Maharaj Yudhisthira is addressed this way. The same in 11.19.11. And just as a name of Maharaj Yudhisthira in 113.36 and in 1075.39. Then in Krishna book, chapter 75, Srila Prabhupada uses this word. This is when the Rajasuya is actually being performed. And Sukadeva Goswami explaining to Parikshit that Yudhisthira was a great soul because his congenial disposition of mind attracted everyone as his friend, because he never created an enemy. He didn't do anything to create an enemy. Right? I know myself, sometimes I do things or say things that make people not like me. Right? They were neutral, and then I did or said something, and now, I don't like Urmila anymore. So, but Maharaj Yudhisthira never did that. He didn't create any enemies. And it's also explained in Krishna book, chapter 75, that because he was a Ajatashatru, that when he successfully completed the great Rajasuya sacrifice, all men, demigods, kings, and sages were extremely happy. Of course, there was one person who wasn't happy. Duryodhana. Right? Now, I thought about this. All right, so suppose we just say, all right, I'm going to follow Krishna's instructions, that I'm going to see friends, enemies, neutrals, well-wishers all equally. I'm not going to consider my enemy. Does that mean I won't have any enemies? Is that what's going to happen? And the answer to that is no. So it's interesting because I was just hearing this lecture yesterday from Prabhupada. It's given on 7/9/17, which is in regard to Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu. This was given in February 76 in Mayapur. So it's a couple paragraphs, but I thought it was really interesting. Prahlad Maharaj said that these two positions, somebody is pleasing and someone is not pleasing, is going on perpetually. Not that, quote, if I change my body, this process will also stop, unquote. No. So long as you have got this body in the material world, you will have these two processes. Somebody will be your friend and somebody will be your enemy. So as soon as there are enemies, there is lamentation, anxiety. So kagnina. Such lamentation is just like a fire of lamentation. So kagnina shakala yonishu. If you think that only the human society such things are there, somebody's enemy, somebody's friend. No, in any society, any yoni. You have seen in even the sparrows, the bird society, they are also fighting. You have seen it. They're also mixing very intimately, again fighting. So either you take the birds or the dogs, they are famous for fighting. Right? One time when I was giving this lecture in Mayapur, I was in Mayapur, I was walking within our compound on one of the roads, and there were these two dogs fighting over the road. You know, who owned the road? And I'm like, I don't think either of you guys own the road. Going on with this lecture. So this is going on. Somebody very dear, somebody inimical, and fighting between them. Sakala yonisha dhamanaha. You cannot get escape by avoiding one society and go to the other society. That is not possible. So sometimes I've heard people in ISKCON say, oh, there's controversies in ISKCON. People are fighting. Let me join some other society of devotees. And I'm like, you know what? It's going to happen there too. It's not like you're going to get away from one group of people and go to another group of people, and then this is not going to happen. I said, even if you get some little sangha of like 5 people, there'll still be this kind of thing going on. Thus, fire of disagreement, enmity, and friendship, it will go on. Not only here, even in the heavenly planet. In the heavenly planet, there is fight between the Devas and Asuras. The Asuras are envious of the Devas, and Devas are also envious of the Asuras, everywhere. Even King Indra, he has got enemies, although he's very opulent. We want to go to the heavenly planet for enjoying the opulence of that atmosphere, but there is also the same thing. So you cannot avoid it, Prahlad Maharaj said. So we can try, now this is also really interesting. So we can try to counteract. Just like in this material world, there are so many attempts to mitigate, just like the United Nations. Prabhupada was often critical of the United Nations. They have formed the United Nations formula to mitigate. No more fighting, no more war, no more enmity. This is an attempt. Enmity is there. Otherwise, why there is a proposal of United Nations? In other words, why would you even have to bother if there was no enemies? Because we are disunited. Therefore, the counter-proposal is, let us become united. So he says, in other words, Prahlad Maharaj says, to organize such things is also very difficult and troublesome. Although it is remedial measure, let us settle our misunderstanding. It is very good proposal. But to settle up this misunderstanding is more troublesome. You have got experience. When you make some agreement with other party, he proposes something, you propose something. So although the agreement is a remedial measure, or sadha, it is still more troublesome. When there was enmity, that is troublesome. Just like when there is some disease, something, you have a boil in your body, it is painful. But when you take the remedial measure, surgical operation, it is still more painful, still more. You have to take anesthetic, chloroform, because it is more painful. So anywhere there is fight, there is enmity, and if you want to settle up, it is more troublesome. So we're not going to avoid this. Even if we're a devotee like Prahlad Maharaj, or even if we're a devotee like Maharaj Yudhisthira, there's going to be fighting, there's going to be enmity, there's going to be disagreements in this world, and the process for dealing with those is more troublesome than the original process. Right? We all have this experience in our life. There's some disagreement with someone that's painful, and to settle the disagreement is more troublesome than the disagreement. Doesn't mean we shouldn't settle them, but that's... In other words, we're not going to get away from this trouble. Having difficulty, having disagreements, having bad feelings, and then having to settle them. So what does it mean, Ajatashatru? So I really like what Madhav's saying here, that it's an internal disposition. It can't be talking about the externals, because Prabhupada says the externals of having enemies is always going to exist. Right? That's not going to go away in any species, in any society, in any group. That's going to be there. There's even some ecstatic, loving origin of this in the spiritual world. The cowherd boys are fighting who's going to touch Krishna first. The different groups of gopis disagree with how to serve Krishna best. Right? One group of gopis says, well, you don't know how to serve Krishna best because even when Krishna apologizes, you're still angry. And the other group says, well, you don't know how to serve Krishna best because when Krishna apologizes, you immediately forgive him. Right? And they have their disagreements like this. Or Mother Rohini is upset with Mother Yasoda. Why did you tie Krishna up in a dangerous place? And he could have gotten killed there. And what's wrong with you? So there's even these disagreements. And in the spiritual world, of course, there it's loving. There's no malice. There's no envy. It's a loving competition to want to please Krishna. But because that exists eternally, and Krishna enjoys that, the devotees say, well, why don't we do this for Krishna? No, we should do this for Krishna. But in this world, it becomes reflected as, I want to usurp your position. We talked about envy the other day. I want to take away your fame. I want to take away your opulence. I want to take away your position because I want to enjoy it. So the devotee doesn't have this envy, and therefore they have no sense of enmity. Right? We talked about envy, I think, last time. Right? That one is satisfied with one's own quota. One is satisfied with whatever Krishna gives one. One is satisfied with one's service. One doesn't feel that I have to take something from somebody else. And Prabhupada writes in the purport in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one considers that if someone is acting as my enemy, well, I must have done something wrong in a previous life, or this is somehow Krishna's will for me, and doesn't take it that I have to retaliate. So Srila Prabhupada talks about this quality of Ajatashatru in a number of lectures. In a lecture in 71, he talks about how a devotee is a friend to everyone. He says whether they're an ant or Lord Brahma. He says because a sadhu acts as a friend to everyone, there cannot be any conceivable enemy from the devotee's side. So I want to do good for everyone. And again, I have no envy. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to take away anything from anyone, even if they're seemingly opposing me. In 68, Prabhupada defined Ajatashatru as completely open to everyone without discrimination. And then also in 68, he said to be Ajatashatru means a person is nirmatsara, free from envy. Again, it's envy that creates enmity. You have something that you shouldn't have or that I want, right? And in 66, he says that Ajatashatru means always peaceful. Prabhupada talks about when we expect retaliation from an enemy, we become fearful, right? If somebody's opposing, what are they going to do? Are they going to hurt me in some way? Are they going to damage? But the devotee is peaceful. Whatever somebody does is the will of Krishna. Right? Mare Krishna Rakhe, Rakhe Krishna Marike. And then in two lectures, in 66 and 71, Prabhupada talks about this kind of paradox. He says that even though a pure devotee is a Ajatashatru and does nothing to create enemies, the material world is so treacherous and envious that people will act as enemies toward them. Right? That even for the greatest and most perfect man, we'll find that people become envious. And of course, we have Prahlad, whose own father was envious of him. What was he envious of? Prahlad's fearlessness. right? Because Hiranyakashipu wasn't fearless. I always like to point out, once he took over the universe, he was still yelling at the demigods for no reason. How do you know that somebody is not peaceful? It's when they get angry over nothing, right? So absolutely nothing happens and they're just blowing up anyway. So he wasn't a happy person, and he was always intoxicated. Also, happy people don't get intoxicated all the time. So he wasn't internally peaceful, and he's envious that Prahlad is just peaceful. Prahlad doesn't have any external power. He's just a little kid, and he's completely peaceful. And here I have everything. I have the whole universe, and I'm not. So he was hating this. And then when Prahlad was immune to all of Hiranyakashipu's attempts to kill him, he became even more fearful and more envious. That I got all these benedictions, all these boons that I couldn't be killed, and my little kid who never did any austerity and never got any boons, he seems to be more immune than I am. And there's a sense of invincibility. This Ajatashatru, Prabhupada talks about in 71. It says that a Krishna-conscious person is Ajatashatru because no enemy can do any harm to them, because Krishna is protecting them. Now you might say, well, we see sometimes that enemies do harm devotees. I mean, Abhimanyu was killed unfairly in the battle. We see this practically. We see, I mean, I remember my stepmother saying to me, what's the use of being a religious person? They suffer just as much as anybody else. But the devotee doesn't feel harmed by the behavior of an enemy. They feel this is Krishna's mercy on me. And I really like in mantra 6 of the Ishopanishad, it says, he who sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything nor any being. So one is seeing that everything is happening by the will of Krishna. And this is just a fact even in terms of karma. You know, I cannot do good for somebody unless it's their karma. I can't. It's not allowed. You know, like if you work for one of these, you know, Walmart, Amazon, or, you know, Home Depot, any of these companies, and you meet someone in your store and you just like them, and you think, well, I'm just going to give them something from the store that they haven't paid for, you'll get fired. You're not allowed to do that. You can only give people what they've paid for, and you can't give them something they haven't paid for. So that's the way the law of karma works. If I'm working in the law of karma, I can neither help you nor hurt you in ways that you haven't paid for with your own karma. And I can't help you and hurt you in a way that's not sanctioned by Krishna. And we've all had this experience, yes? People have tried to help us and it didn't work. Hasn't everyone had that experience? Someone's tried to be helpful for you and it just wasn't helpful. Or maybe someone tried to hurt you and they just couldn't do anything. It just had no effect. And sometimes we've tried to help people and it was useless. We were not able to accomplish anything. Maybe we tried to hurt people and it was useless. Because we can't act independently. So the devotee sees that. Whatever good is coming to me is sanctioned by Krishna. Whatever so-called bad is coming to me is sanctioned by Krishna. And because Krishna is all good, the so-called good and the so-called bad is all good. Therefore, the devotee has no fear. The devotee has no envy. The devotee doesn't see the delivery person as their enemy. If I order the wrong thing, right? Like sometimes we order something and it comes and it's the wrong size. You ordered the wrong size. Happened to me about a year ago. I put the wrong size in by mistake. I'm not angry at the delivery person. You understand? It's not the fault of I ordered the wrong thing. So when I'm getting some bad reaction, it means I did something wrong. Why should I be angry at the delivery person? So then what about this tormenting of enemies? And this word karshana, it's an interesting word. It means to make lean and thin, to reduce somehow, to cut down. It can also mean to hurt, right? Like we just pruned our roses. We cut them down, right? Now, actually, of course, we did that for the benefit of the roses. So when Maharaj Yudhisthira is cutting down enemies, he's doing it for the benefit of those entities and for the benefit of society. He doesn't have an inner disposition of enmity. Even when we're pulling weeds, it's one of my regular services here is pulling weeds. We could have by the way, this is a public service announcement. We could use a lot more weed pullers on the property, especially by either side of the brick path. Anyone who's listening, we really need weed pullers. So when we're pulling the weeds, we're tormenting the weeds, undoubtedly. I'm sure they're tormented. But we're doing it for the benefit of the preaching. We're doing it for the benefit of the society. We don't want the garden simply overgrown with weeds. Like a jury and a judge, they're not supposed to have any enmity towards the criminal that they convict. They're what we call disinterested. It's not for their personal benefit or their personal harm that they're saying this person is guilty. And individual forgiveness and an individual equilibrium doesn't deny the fact that some people should be punished, or that some people should be restricted. So Yudhisthira doesn't see these persons as his personal enemies that are interfering with his sense enjoyment. But it's in order to rule the world as Krishna desires. Krishna wants his devotees to rule the world. Krishna would like it very much if his devotees were the heads of state of the world. If his devotees were the heads of all the businesses and all the agriculture and all the universities and all the chiefs of craftspersons. Krishna would like that very much. And in order to rule the world, you have to cut down the people who are opposed, who are inimical. And of course, when he does this in the Rajasuya, he doesn't just go out with a sword, but he asks them first for tribute. Will you voluntarily accept my rule, Maharaj Yudhisthira is asking, and most of the kings do. Only a few of them do they have to fight with, and notably, of course, Jarasandha, which is what we're coming to. So we might have that as a service, especially those who have a kshatriya temperament. That is especially their service, to save the saintly and punish the miscreants. And if that's not our service, if that's not what our particular dharma, then we do have a service to report miscreants. You know, if people are doing some criminal activity, we don't just say, well, I don't see anybody as an enemy. Right? If someone's coming to the temple and threatening people or stealing things or breaking things, we still have to, we can't just say, oh, I just love everybody. So go ahead and break everything. But we need to report them. So what is it to be a Jatashatru inside? It's an attitude of basically constantly forgiving anybody who apparently causes us harm. But what does this mean? Because again, it doesn't mean that I don't call 911. You follow? It doesn't mean that I don't call Leela Shakti and say, hey, we have a problem here that has to be dealt with. That's not what it means. What does it mean? It means that I just think if this is happening to me, there must be some lesson from Krishna in it. There must be something I have to learn. There must be some way that I can improve in my own Krishna consciousness with this situation. And let this person learn in as easy and joy. Let this other person learn what they have to learn, the way I would like to learn, in an easy and joyful way. When Prahlad is asking for his father to be liberated, he's not asking for his father to be excused without reformation. He's not saying, please excuse my father so he can go on tormenting people. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying, you know, take this evil person and just let him loose on society. He's saying, please reform him joyfully without punishment. So we should desire that those who have enmity towards us, that they get reformed without having to be punished. They may have to be punished, but our desire is for them to have a joyful reformation, not to delight in their distress, not to say, because that's what they're doing. If somebody's delighting in distressing me, I don't want to delight in distressing them. Then I'm no better than they are, as Dharma the Bull says. And I should do things to try to keep myself safe. You know, lock your door at night, put on your seatbelt, and don't try our best not to create enemies unnecessarily. But ultimately trust that Krishna is protecting me. Krishna is protecting me. Nobody can hurt me unless Krishna allows it, and if he allows it, he has some reason. But yes, I have some responsibility. I have some responsibility to take care of my health and take care of my safety as a service, but I don't think of myself as the protector. Not that I'm going to be so clever that I'm going to make sure that I have no enemies in this world. So in this way, we see that Maharaj Yudhisthira, he had a mood that no one was his enemy. He personally had no enemies. He had no one he was envious of. He had no one he was inimical to. He had nobody that he wanted to hurt. And as a service to the Lord, just like Krishna, and as a service to the Lord, he wanted to have a peaceful kingdom. And to have a peaceful kingdom, he had to deal with those who are inimical without having any hatred toward them. It's a high bar, but it's a bar to which we should aspire, and it's something that we should work towards. And when we find ourselves feeling fearful of enemies or feeling inimical to someone, to kind of stop and step back and say, what is Krishna asking me to do? How is Krishna asking me to deal with these people? Is it my job to go out with a sword and cut off their head? Is it a job for me to report them to the police? And ultimately inside, to have this mood of, Krishna, you're taking care of me, whatever you want to do, I accept your protection, and may this other person, may they learn joyfully, may they get rectified, may they get purified in the same ways that I want to get purified, which is through joy and inner inspiration rather than through suffering. So anything good in this presentation is from Srila Prabhupada, our acharyas in the Shastra. Any mistakes here are mine. Please either correct or ignore my mistakes and take the good. I think we're out of time. I see that we're actually over time. Yes, Prahlad, Hiranyakashipu saw Prahlad as an enemy because he represented the Lord, yes. He was a constant reminder of the supremacy of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah. Taking pleasure in others' suffering. It's mitigating against the root of our attachment. Yeah. Yes. Because it's hitting the very root. Yes. And I have to do a major thing for Tulsi today.
Tomorrow is going to be a nice day.
It is, but I have to do it right before.
Govindam Adi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Namaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanta
Yasomati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nana Brajabaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manohara Gopi Parana Madana Manohara Kaliya Damana Vidana Kaliya Vidana Kaliya Damana Vidana Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mami Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Vilasa Vipinan Porandara Navina Nagara Mora Vamsivadana Suvasa Vipinam Porandara Vina Nagara Bara Vamsivadana Suvasa Vipinam Porandara Navina Nagara Bara Vamsivadana Sudasa Vipinam Purandara Navina Nagara Vamsivadana Sudasa Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Jajana Palana Surakula Nashana Brajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Jamana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godana Rakovala Nanda Godana Rakovala Nanda Godana Rakovala Nanda Godana Rakovala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Yamuna Datta Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Muna Tata Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tata Chara Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tata Chara Gopi Vasanahara Rasa Rasika Kripa Moya Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natapara 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 Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Yasomati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yasomati Nandana Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natapara Sri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natapara Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Bhakati Vinoda Shraya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Goloka Nanda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Oh. Lord Krishna is beloved son of Yashoda, transcendental lover in the land of Braj, the delight of Gokula, known by the nickname Kana, the wealth of the lives of the gopis, attractor of Cupid and punisher of the serpent Kaliya. These pure holy names of Lord Hari are full of sweet nectarian pastimes, Lord of the 12 forests of Braj, ever youthful, the best of lovers, player of the flute, an excellent dresser, protector of the inhabitants of Braj, destroyer of the demoniac dynasties, keeper and tender of Nanda's cows, giver of pleasure to cows, land, and spiritual senses, husband of the goddess of fortune, butter thief, and beautiful little cowherd boy of Nanda Maharaj, wanderer of the Yamuna riverbank, thief of the garments of the gopis, enjoyer of the mellows of the rasa dance, very merciful, lover and beloved of Sri Radha, the great dancer of Vrindavan, and the only shelter of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Chaitodarpanam marjanam bhava mahadavaki darpanam shreya vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhi vardhanam pratipanam purnamrita swadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam nam namakari bahudan nija sarva shaktis tatrapitani amita smaranena kala etadrishita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdaiva midrishami hajjanina anuraga trinadapi sunichena charorapi suhishuna